Let us now answer the question you asked by applying the principle. The still point of concentrated power, which corresponds with the sun's still point of gravity, is the very center of man's heartbeat. He charges his body in that inward direction, and discharges his body from that same point, but outward instead of inward. He charges his body electrically by the electric current of his breathing. Now you must know that an electric current is a series of waves, and each wave is a pump. A wave is a lever which oscillates upon a fulcrum. When you breathe in and out, you are pumping electric energy toward and away from the center of your heart. Question: don't you mean lungs instead of heart? Answer: no, I mean one's heart. For the heart is the generator of power for the whole body. The lungs are an extension of the heart, just as any wheel in a watch is an extension of its main spring, from which it borrows its power. The heart is the fulcrum from which the lever of motion extends to countless levers and fulcrums throughout the body. All expressions of power anywhere are traceable to a common source from which all creating things borrow their ability to manifest power through motion. Remember this, however, that the power is not in the motion. It is in the stillness of the fulcrum. Question: will you please explain that ideal more fully? Could you give us a concrete example? Answer: yes. Take any action whatsoever, such as a man lifting a trunk. His entire body is a system of fulcrums from which levers extend. His fingers, his elbows, his hips, knees, ankles, toes, even the ground beneath his feet, are fulcrums for the whole body. Unless the man's feet were not upon the solid earth, or an extension of it such as a building, he could not lift anything. That still point where man's feet touch the ground, and acts as a fulcrum for him to lift the trunk, is an extension of the center of gravity of the earth, for that point is the only point of stillness on this earth. The earth's center of stillness, however, is an extension of the sun's still center, and that is also an extension of the still greater nebular system. So God is the source of all things and the motion of all things. All things extend from his cosmic stillness, and his cosmic stillness centers all of his extensions. To quote the Divine Illiad, "For behold, I am within all things, centering them, and I am without all things, controlling them." The thought of most value for you to remember is that in any system of extensions, the power to manifest the source lessens as its distance from its source increases, and multiplies as its distance to its source decreases. Question: please give us some example in nature which demonstrates this law. Answer: all nature manifests it. There is no exception. The sun, for example, is the source of this whole solar system. Each planet extending from it has a lesser gravitational pull as its distance from the sun increases. That is likewise true of the radiative thrust, for both are always equal. Consider also the industrial system. The source or leader of it extends his power all down the line to the sweeper. Each extension of power is lesser the further it is removed from its leader. The same is true in the army or any other organization. If therefore you desire power, see to it that you are close to God, for he is the source of all power. Now another question. My husband is a nervous wreck. He is a violinist, and people built a brass foundry near us, and the noises have so distracted him that he can hardly work, and I fear for his health. What I want to ask is how you can possibly sustain your statement that we make our own lives and are responsible for our ills. Other people make the noises that make him ill. We built a beautiful house in a quiet spot, and they came and made an inferno instead. Answer: If your husband built his house upon shifting sands and the house washed away, would you blame the sands and water, or would you blame your husband for poor judgment in building his house on sands? You would blame your husband, of course. You would say that he should have used better judgment. When you built your house, you should have protected yourself against such a nuisance by building in a zoned residential section. Otherwise, you took your chances. You cannot blame the foundry man. He had every right to build there. We all make mistakes or err in our judgment. When we do make a mistake because of our errors of judgment, we have made our own life, and no one can be blamed for our own errors. But when we make mistakes, we should rectify them calmly and with dignity. Your husband could either sell his house or walk away from it if he could not sell it. He was not compelled to stay there and become a nervous wreck. He himself made himself a nervous wreck, and nothing can cure him but his own decision to calmly meet his situation and overcome it with dignity. I cannot see it in any other light than that he made his own illness by his own decisions and actions. Question. For years I have wanted to learn how to concentrate and meditate, but have been warned against meditation without a guide. It is said that that particular path is strewn with the wrecks of people who become mentally and emotionally unbalanced due to their lack of understanding. I would appreciate it if you could give me some clue as to how to meditate. Answer. To have been warned against meditation without a guide is utmost absurdity. To meditate is to become one with God. It means to stop thinking, and thus get out of the awareness of body. One can be aware of his body and of material things only while and because one is thinking. You use the terms concentrate and meditate as though they were the same. To concentrate is to think very hard and focus your thoughts to a point. To meditate is just the opposite. It means to expand one's thought into space until one stops thinking and steps into the still light of knowing. Thinking is sensing, and sensing is vibratory motion. Conversely, meditating is becoming still in order to talk with God. When I say talk with God, I mean become inspired with His light of all-knowing. One talks with God in timeless light. Inspiration comes in flashes of still light, invisible light. If you want to know anything whatsoever, just desire to know it, then stop thinking. Try to get into a state of universal ecstasy or inner joyousness, which is a state of consciousness like unto the God mind. Void your mind of thoughts, thought forms, and ideas. Become perfectly blank insofar as ideal and form are concerned. In that manner, you become transformed from man as an individual unit of mankind and become all soul, the universal soul. In that manner you make the transition from the state of sensing some things materially to knowing all things cosmically. You certainly do not need a guide to keep you from trouble by doing that. The great geniuses of the world do that constantly. It is their very life. You would as well need a guide to teach you how to love your mother as to need a guide to help you seek the light which centers you.